Hello, good evening and welcome to my humble model railway, Bedstead Junction. I'm back filming again, making more model railway videos. Back from my break, which I took for personal family reasons. Some of you may have seen my video actually explaining why I was actually taking a break. And I thank everybody for their kind messages of support. And it's nice to be back now. So what we're looking at are a couple of Great Western locomotives. Of course, me being a Bristolian, Great Westerns will always be the main railway for me. Now, it's a Grange class and a Star class. Okay, in the foreground is the Grange class, Derwent's Grange, and that's with early BR livery, and that's in BR black. A lot of locomotives were painted black, especially mixed traffic locomotives. During and just after nationalisation as well. So during the war and just after nationalisation. And then beyond it is the Star class. That's in BR green, again with an early crest, and they're both single chimney locomotives. The main differences between them is the size, and one is a 2-cylinder locomotive and the other one is a 4. Now, the Grange class is a range of mixed traffic locomotives designed by Charles Benjamin Colleton, introduced in 1936. They had 5'8" wheels, so they were smaller than the Hall class, and it was they were intended to replace the 43 XX 260 moguls. Now, they didn't come to completely replace the moguls. In fact, both the Granges and the moguls survived on into nationalisation. Okay, but what they did use is that in their construction they did use some of the parts from the withdrawn 260 moguls. Now, there were 80 of these locomotives built, as far as I can recall. It was intended to be a much larger class, the Grange class. But actually, production was actually interrupted by World War II. And of course, after World War II, the railways were all nationalised, and that's when a series of standard locomotives were actually produced. Derwent Grange was built in February 1939 and withdrawn in June 1965. And the locomotive was scrapped at Bridge End. So none of the Granges, in fact, survived the cutter's torch. I think it's intended for a Grange to be built at some point by one preservation society or another. So we're going to have a look at the Grange class going round now. Derwent Grange is a model by Hornby, and the model is from around about 2005. Okay, so what we're going to hope that we'll be able to do now is to send it out to the station quite smoothly, but we'll see. Just check I've looked down the track and see if the points are correct. I think they are, so we'll just reverse it out of the station. As you see, quite a nice model, quite easy to control. And there we are, we're stopped to the signal box now, and we'll focus on the locomotive. So if there's a slight juddiness in the tripod, it's one which I hadn't used for many years, and I brought it out of retirement, basically. I'm using it on my model railway. But here we go now, we're just going to change the points, and we'll let Derwent Grange go around the tracks. There we are. Now we should be ready to actually take a trip round the railway. Derwent Grange. Now, they become very, very popular, these locomotives. In fact, they were good at climbing up hills because they had the smaller wheels, and of course that sort of gave it the potential to climb hills a little bit more easily. I say they were a class of 80 locomotives, and production was only stopped by the Second World War. It was one of a range of two-cylinder locomotives. And obviously the first was the Saint class under George Jackson Churchward. Two-cylinder 460s we're talking about now. And then you had the Hall class, the Grange class, and the Monarch class. All 260s, twin-cylinder locomotives. And this is a purchase I made on eBay during the lockdown. Looks very, very smart in a BR black. Now we'll see if we can keep this in focus. What we're going to do is we're going to look across the station opposite, and we should be able to see our locomotive whizzing through the station and past the freight train that we can see in the distance. Now, this being my return to the railways, model railways that is, I'm going to probably make this make it quite a lengthy video, but we'll see how we go. Okay. Now, one of the reasons why a lot of these locomotives were withdrawn was because there was a reduction in freight traffic. A lot of the freight was being diverted onto the roads, and that again could be a controversial subject. All the freight being moved off the railways onto the roads. And they're especially suited the twisting hilly routes of the western region of British Rail. And in fact, it was a combination of boiler design and smaller driving wheels which gave the Grange a special reputation amongst enginemen and operators for their ability to hold very heavy loads up steep gradients. And I suppose one question you may ask is, with this model of Derwent's Grange, would I recommend Derwent's Grange to be added to your collection? Yes. If you're into your Great Westerns, and even if you're not, this particular locomotive is a very, very nice runner. I bought this second hand on eBay. It wasn't bought new. I say it's a lockdown purchase. I say it was from the Hornby range of 2005. From the information I can gather. Now, if you imagine 2005 was some considerable time ago, 16 years ago, so we're looking at a 16-year-old locomotive flying around my track. Okay, very, very nice too. Then what we're going to do is we're going to run her in just a moment. But I want to squeeze in quite a few vehicles tonight, quite a few locomotives and trains, and it's nice to get the Grange class back out again. I don't think I've run Derwent's Grange for some time. Okay, so we're going to stop her just up on the signal there. overshot it slightly. That's me. Sat the driver. He's useless. Okay, bear with me just for a moment. We've just changed the points and we'll bring this one into the station. And on this particular design of layout, with the siding being as it is, of course, controllability is of paramount importance. You can't suddenly turn the controller and then have it go racing off the edge of the track. Okay, so we're going to see what happens now with it going into the station. In fact, what we'll do is we're going to reverse it back ever so slightly. There we are, so we're back on the signal now. There we are, so it's back where it should be. We're just going to move forward and have a quick change of points. There we are. So now we're ready to come to the station. And perhaps we can imagine this one whizzing through the hilly parts of Devon and Cornwall and taking its happy passengers to their destination. Now we'll see now as we go over the points quite easily. Slow her right down. There we are, so that's all the controllability I needed to be able to get this locomotive safely into the station and not flying off the edge of the track. Very, very nice, Derwent Grange. Okay. You can see, even though it's black, it's got the normal copper cap chimney, safety valve there, safety valve cover, and then just in the front of the cab, just in front of the cab there, the whistles. Just see if we can zoom in a little and stay in focus. Now, I don't know if you can see that. There we are. That's a nameplate Derwent Grange as well. Very, very nice indeed. Okay, so right, now the next locomotive we're looking at is a Hornby Star class. Just beyond the Grange there. And we'll talk about this model as it's going round and a little bit about its history. We're just going to put the control into reverse. And we'll just have a quick change of points. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn the camera around just now for now. And then we can get ready to reverse this one out of the station. Now again, controllability again will be of paramount importance. We're going to reverse this one out of the station now, hopefully. There we go. And again, very, very nice on the controller. Very nice ever points, these locomotives tonight. And we're just going to get ready for a nice run around the track now, and we can talk about the Hornby Star class. Right, so let's bring her down the track now. The lovely Star class. In BR green. Now the Star class were designed by George Jackson Churchward. It was the predecessor to Charles Benjamin Collett, who was the designer of the lovely Derwent Grange there, the Grange class. Now the original prototype of this particular class of locomotive was actually built as with a 442 wheel arrangement. At the time, Churchward was experimenting with different wheel configurations and looking at best locomotive practices in Europe and in the United States. What he did, he actually decided upon a 460 wheel arrangement, which was would be the same wheel arrangement as the Saint class. The Saint class was a 2-cylinder express passenger locomotive. This one was designed as a 4-cylinder express passenger locomotive. And 73 of the class were built in 10 batches between 1907 and 1923. They were built at Swindon Works. And they had a very, very long service life. In fact, they went on into British Royal ownership. The only one that's preserved is Lodestar. That's about Lode Star, and that was that's in the actual National Railway Museum in the National Collection. So I intend to go to the National Railway Museum at some point, and when I do, perhaps I'll be able to take a picture of it. Five Stars were actually rebuilt as Castle class locomotives in the mid-1920s. In fact, that's something which the Great Western Railway did quite a lot of, because the Great Western standardised a lot of their parts of their locomotives, and so a lot of the parts on locomotives were actually interchangeable. And I don't know the exact number of spokes the wheel was supposed to have, but there's I think there's a bit of an argument over how many spokes the front bogie wheels should have on these particular class of locomotives, and on the Castles and the Kings and everyone, and all the other express passenger locomotives. But I think with the Great Western Railway often interchanging parts, I mean, it maybe that's different types of wheel will actually find themselves on different classes of locomotive. But it's a very, very nice model, this. Dare I say, because of the Star class, yes, it's one of the stars of the show, yes, along with my lovely Derwent Grange. Now you can tell the difference between the Star class from a Castle or a King because of the cab. It's a clearly throwback to the Dean Churchward days, which you'll see the locomotives having much smaller cabs. The Collett cabs had a side window were much bigger, and there was a little bit more shelter between the locomotive and the tender. Now, you'll probably ask me, would I recommend one of these models? Yes, I would. But if you get it through the post, examine it very, very carefully when you receive it. Hornby did go through a stage where some of his models were arriving to their new owners broken. Now this particular one, I had to send the first one back to the seller because 3 parts were broken off from it. The darts was broken off from the front of the smoke box. One of the steps was broken off from the tender, but the actual killer was that one of the metal rails which was at the front of the tender was actually broken off completely. In fact, it actually fell off when it came out of the box and fell on the floor, and I never found it again, but it was actually separated from the locomotive. I had to send it back, unfortunately. So this is the second one which I received, which I'm very, very pleased with now. Now both the Star class, like we see running here, and the Derwent Grange are both loco driven locomotives, loco driven. Some of the earlier models by Hornby were tender driven. Now this locomotive was actually renamed. It was originally named King Edward in June 1909, but it was renamed British Monarch in October 1927. Now, I think I know why that was, because the name King Edward was going to be used on one of the King class locomotives. In fact, I've got King Edward the First, the Hornby model, which we'll get to see on in another video. And this locomotive was drawn on the 31st of October 1952, having covered over 2 million miles. So that shows you what great service these locomotives actually could give. Now, George Jackson Churchward was actually asked by the board one day, that was Chief Mechanical Engineer from 1902 to 1922, why did it cost more to build a Great Western locomotive than what it cost to build locomotives from other railways. And he actually turned around and said to the board that one of his could pull 2 of theirs backwards, and at the time that was probably right. I mean, some of the other railways did actually catch up with the Great Western. Well, the Great Western were known for making very, very powerful, over-engineered locomotives, and that probably contributed to their longevity. And that's not intended to be any kind of offence to the fans of other railways. Because again, the LMS, the Southern, and last but not least the LNER went on all to build very, very superb locomotives. And in fact, it was a race very often with the Great Western Railway and other railways to either build the most powerful in the form of tractive effort, or the fastest locomotive. And in fact, the Midland and the LNER were basically trying to outdo each other in how fast their locomotives could pull a train to Scotland, from London to Scotland. Whereas of course the Great Western Railway was more concerned with going from Paddington to the West Country and down to Cornwall. I mean, the West Country did go into Wales after the 1923. And the Great Western Railway did find its way up to places like Birmingham. So yes, the Great Western Railway did go further afield, but really the main line of the Great Western Railway was the original main line between Paddington and Bristol Temple Meads. Later, of course, the line was diverted through Westbury and onto Cocklow Junction, which actually saved time for the Great Western Railway trains. And again, the main rival to the Great Western Railway in many ways was the Southern, racing on their way down to Plymouth and to Cornwall. So you can see the lovely Star class going round now, and yes, definitely a locomotive that I would say people should put on their shopping list. After my experience of receiving the broken locomotive, now when I received my broken locomotive, I don't think it was the fault of either Hornby or the seller. I think it took an enormous thump when it was actually in transit, because the original locomotive was actually in the kind of block of ice packaging, but twisted round on a 45-degree angle, and because it twisted round, it had actually pulled those parts clean off the front and rear of the locomotive. And I think it caused those parts to come off. And then the second one arrived obviously in far better condition. Okay, so I can thank the seller for sorting that out for me. Rails of Sheffield. So I'll send out a big thanks to Rails of Sheffield for sorting that one out for me. Now, we're going to be bringing the Star Class in just a few moments' time. But let's kind of imagine how fast all the railways progressed in the building of their locomotives. Say, for example, going from the Victorian age into the Edwardian age, and then on into the 20s and 1930s when King George came to the throne. Now, in the Victorian age, they were still building, even right to the end of the Victorian age, single wheelers, the Dean singles. And yet by the early 1900s, the Great Western Railway were producing far more powerful locomotives like this. And the reason was because the actual trains were getting heavier and heavier, putting more coaches, probably heavier built coaches, and the Great Western Railway had a large number of hills. I mean, the Dean singles were very, very fast locomotives, and they were used on expresses all over the Great Western. But then it's sort of you can kind of imagine now what it must have been like to see the enormous leap forwards that were being made by the locomotive builders on all of the big four after the grouping of 1923. As a matter of fact, a lot of the advances made from the early 1900s onwards. Now, I think what we're going to do is we're going to bring this one into the station in just a moment. I'm going to have a look at both locomotives together in the station. In fact, we're going to bring her in now. I've had great fun running this one, watching this one go around the track. There we are, I've got that one. Just move the tripod around a little bit there. And now we're going to bring this one into the station. Now, I do cast a bit of a shadow over the railway as I go past because I'm getting in the way of the lamp that's to the side. So that's something which is on my shopping list. Is some additional lighting for this layout. But we'll get there in the end. And I really do honestly intend to decorate this layout a little bit. Maybe cover up some of these oil stains which are all over the baseboards and everything. But that's always another job for another day. Here we go. Let's see if we can bring her in. Here it comes. Beautiful. We'll see her coming into the station now. Beautiful. And again, really, really nice on the controller. Now, for those of you who might be wondering what kind of controller I'm using right now, I will show it to you. I think it'd be nice for you to see it. Let's bring it around here so we can get some focus onto it. There we are. There's a gauge master